Stop. Don't skip this. Not because this video is special, but because you are. Before another year quietly passes, before you repeat the same promises, before life pulls you back into autopilot, ask yourself one honest question. How many times have you said, next year will be different? And how many times wasn't it? This is not about guilt. This is not about regret. This is about responsibility. Because deep down you already know the truth. 2026 doesn't owe you anything. But you owe something to yourself. You owe yourself effort. You owe yourself growth. You owe yourself a chance to become who you know you could be. And that's where this story begins. There's a kind of disappointment that doesn't come from failure. It comes from knowing you could have tried harder. Not the kind of failure where everyone sees you fall. Not the kind where you lose loudly and have to explain yourself. This disappointment is quieter than that. It doesn't come with drama. It doesn't come with tears in front of people. It doesn't even come with a clear moment you can point to and say, that's where it all went wrong. It comes from something harder to admit. The truth that you didn't really show up. You were there, but not fully. You did something, but not your best. You started, but didn't commit. And deep down you know it. It doesn't show on your face. The strange thing is you can look completely fine. You can laugh in a room full of people. You can post your normal updates. You can do your daily routine and answer messages like everything is okay. Nobody sees it. Because this disappointment doesn't sit on your face. It sits inside you. It's the kind that shows up when you're brushing your teeth at night and you catch your reflection for a second too long. The kind that creeps in when the house goes quiet. When you finally stop moving. When you finally stop distracting yourself. It's not loud. It doesn't shout. It waits. It sits with you at night. At night, when everything slows down, it becomes harder to avoid. The day ends. The calls stop. The tasks are done or at least postponed. The world goes quieter. And then there you are. You're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and the noise fades. No more conversations. No more scrolling that actually entertains you. No more quick distractions. Just you and your thoughts. That's when it comes. Not as a scream. As a weight. A quiet, familiar heaviness. You might not even have words for it at first. It's just a feeling sitting in your chest. And then your mind starts playing highlights you didn't ask for. Not the moments you're proud of. The moments you avoided. The memories that sting softly. You remember the times you almost did it. Almost started. Almost stayed consistent. Almost took the risk. You remember the moment you promised yourself you'd do better. And the moment, weeks later, when you stopped trying and told yourself it was fine. You remember the goals you wrote down with excitement. The vision you had for yourself. The plans you made when you felt inspired. And now, months later, it's like those promises belong to a different person. That's what makes this kind of disappointment painful. It's not about what happened. It's about what didn't. When the noise fades, the truth speaks. This disappointment shows up when you're alone. When the noise fades. When there's nothing left to distract you. Because noise is a great cover. Noise can convince you that you're busy, even when you're avoiding. Noise can make you feel like time is moving fast so you don't have to face what you didn't do. Noise can drown out the voice inside you that keeps whispering, you know you can do more. But silence doesn't lie. Silence makes space. And in that space, truth gets louder. Not because you're being punished. Because you're finally hearing yourself. The feeling of potential left unused. It's the feeling of potential left unused. Not potential as in talent you show off. Not potential as in what people think you're capable of. Your potential. The version of you that could have been stronger. The version that could have been disciplined. The version that could have followed through. Not perfect, just present. And the hardest part is, you can almost see that version. Like a shadow of yourself walking beside you. Close enough to recognize. Far enough to hurt. That's why it stings so quietly. Because you know it wasn't impossible. You weren't lacking ability. You were lacking effort. And effort is something you can't blame on anyone else. Why this disappointment hurts more than failure? Failure can be explained. Sometimes failure has reasons. Bad timing. Not enough resources. People letting you down. Things outside your control. But I didn't try as hard as I could have, doesn't have many excuses. That's why it sits deeper. Because it's not about what life did to you. It's about what you didn't do for yourself. And when you realize that, it doesn't make you hate yourself. It just makes you tired. Tired of living with that quiet regret. You don't need another year of that. You don't need another year of that. Another year of saying, next week. Another year of feeling inspired for 2 days and then disappearing again. Another year of watching other people move forward while you tell yourself you're waiting for the right time. Another year of collecting ideas instead of collecting actions. Because the truth is, the right time rarely comes. And even when it comes, it doesn't stay long. Life doesn't slow down and offer you a perfect opening. You either show up or you don't. And if you don't, the disappointment doesn't scream. It just waits for you at night. The moment you admit it. There's usually a moment, quiet, personal, when you finally admit it to yourself. Not in a dramatic way. Just a simple realization. You're sitting alone, maybe in your car after a long day. Or standing by a window. Or laying in bed while everyone else is asleep. And you think, I can't keep doing this. Not life. Not work. Not responsibilities. This pattern. The pattern of knowing what you should do, and not doing it. The pattern of starting strong, and fading out. The pattern of letting your own potential sit untouched like it belongs to someone else. That moment isn't full of hype. It's full of honesty. And honesty is where change begins. 2026 isn't about proving anything. 2026 isn't about proving anything to the world. Not proving you're talented. Not proving you're successful. Not proving you're worthy of respect. Because proving yourself to the world can become its own trap. You do things for applause. You chase validation. You build a life that looks good on the outside but still feels empty inside. And the truth is, even if you impress everyone, the disappointment still comes at night if you didn't show up for you. Because deep down, you always know when you're performing. And you always know when you're living. It's about showing up for yourself. 2026 is about finally showing up for yourself. Not with big speeches. Not with perfect routines. Not with a dramatic transformation that lasts 1 week. Showing up means something simpler. It means doing the thing you said you would do. Even when you don't feel like it. Even when nobody claps. Even when it's boring. It means keeping promises, small ones, that rebuild trust inside you. Because that trust is what you've been missing. Not motivation. Not time. Not talent. Trust. The small places where showing up starts. Showing up doesn't start with huge change. It starts in small moments. When the alarm goes off and you don't hit snooze. Not because you're superhuman, because you decided you matter. When you take the walk you promised yourself. Not to impress anyone, just to keep your word. When you open the page and read, even if it's only 1 page. Not because it changes your life instantly, because it changes your identity slowly. When you stop talking yourself out of effort. That's showing up. Not once. Repeatedly. A new kind of pride. And something happens when you start doing that. A different kind of pride appears. Not ego. Not arrogance. A calm respect for yourself. You start feeling lighter. Not because life is easier, because you're no longer carrying that quiet guilt. You start sleeping differently. Because your mind isn't replaying what you avoided. You start looking at yourself differently. Because you're no longer someone who only dreams. You're someone who acts. And that shifts everything. The quiet confidence that returns. When you show up for yourself, you don't have to force confidence. Confidence returns naturally. Because confidence is built from evidence. Every time you do what you said you'd do, your brain records it. I can trust me. I follow through. I don't abandon myself. And slowly, the disappointment that used to visit at night starts having less to say. Because now, even if you're not where you want to be yet, you're moving. And movement creates hope. No more wasted potential. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is no more unused potential. Not because you owe the world anything, but because you owe yourself peace. Peace at night. Peace in silence. Peace in knowing that you tried. Even if it's slow. Even if it's messy. Even if it takes time. Trying is enough to quiet that disappointment. Because the disappointment was never asking for perfection. It was asking for effort. A different ending to your nights. Imagine ending a day knowing you showed up. Not flawlessly. Just honestly. You did what you said you'd do. Even if it was small. Even if it was quiet. That kind of day changes your nights. You don't lie there feeling that weight. You don't need to distract yourself to avoid your thoughts. Because you're not running from yourself anymore. You're with yourself. And that's the real reset. So let 2026 be this. Let 2026 be the year you stop negotiating with your own potential. Let it be the year you stop waiting to feel ready. Let it be the year you stop proving and start living. Not for attention. For yourself. Because you don't need another year of quiet regret. You need a year of showing up. And the moment you choose that, even before results, something inside you starts to feel lighter. Like you're finally coming home to yourself. You're not late. You're undecided. Let's clear something right now. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not behind in life. I know it feels like it sometimes. I know you look around and it seems like everyone has something figured out. Someone is getting married. Someone is buying a house. Someone is traveling. Someone is launching a business. Someone is posting wins like life is a highlight reel with no messy parts. And there you are, staring at your own life like a half-loaded screen. Like something is buffering. Like the real version of you is coming soon, but not today. So your mind starts telling stories. I'm too late. I wasted time. I missed my chance. Maybe I'm just not built for this. But listen carefully. That's not the truth. The truth is usually simpler and a little more uncomfortable. You are undecided. Undecided to commit. Undecided to change. Undecided to stop living on pause. And before you get defensive, before you start judging yourself, understand something. Being undecided doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. It happens when you've been disappointed before. It happens when you're scared of picking the wrong path. It happens when you've tried and failed and don't want to feel that pain again. It happens when you've been carrying too much for too long. So you hesitate. You wait. You keep your options open because commitment feels like risk. And you tell yourself you're being careful. But deep down you know the real reason. If you don't choose, you can't fully lose. If you don't commit, you can't fully fail. If you keep life on pause, you never have to face the fear of seeing what happens when you truly try. That's why undecided can feel safe. But safe is not the same as alive. Life on pause looks normal. Until it doesn't. The tricky thing about living on pause is that from the outside it can look normal. You still wake up. You still go through the day. You still talk to people. You still make plans sometimes. You still laugh here and there. But internally, you're waiting. Waiting to feel confident. Waiting to feel ready. Waiting for the right time. Waiting for clarity to drop from the sky like some perfect sign. And while you wait, time keeps moving. Not dramatically. Quietly. You look at your calendar and months pass. You scroll through photos and see seasons change. You hear someone say, "Wow, this year flew by," and you laugh, but something in you feels heavy because it didn't fly. It slipped. And deep down you know, you've been in the same emotional spot for too long. Not because you didn't want more, because you couldn't decide. You couldn't pick the hard thing and stick with it. You kept thinking, "I'll choose when I'm sure." But certainty is rare. And clarity often arrives after commitment, not before it. The quiet wait of maybe later. There's a special kind of tiredness that comes from not choosing. It's not the tiredness of doing too much. It's the tiredness of thinking too much. Because when you don't decide, your mind becomes a meeting room that never closes. You replay the same questions. Should I start the business? Should I switch careers? Should I move? Should I end this relationship? Should I fix my health? Should I finally take myself seriously? And every time you almost lean toward an answer, fear pulls you back. What if it doesn't work? So you don't move forward. But you also can't fully relax. Because your soul knows you're meant for more than maybe later. So you live in this middle space. Half hope, half fear, half alive. And you call it waiting for the right time. But what you're really doing is avoiding the responsibility of choosing. Why you think you're behind. Let's talk about why you feel behind, because it matters. Most people don't feel behind because they truly are behind. They feel behind because they're comparing their inside to someone else's outside. You're comparing your doubts to their confidence. Your messy beginning to their polished middle. Your private struggle to their public success. And when you do that, your brain starts building a cruel narrative. They're ahead. I'm behind. But life is not a race with one finish line. Some people win early and burn out later. Some people start late and grow fast. Some people take detours that look like delays, but they become the exact experiences that make them unstoppable. You don't know the full story behind the person you're comparing yourself to. And you don't even know the full story of yourself yet, because you haven't chosen what you're becoming. That's the part nobody says out loud. You're not behind. You're undecided. And that's okay. Until it's not. Now listen, being undecided is not something to be ashamed of. It's okay to be unsure. It's okay to take time. It's okay to admit you don't know what you want yet. It's okay, until it's not. Because there's a point where hesitation becomes a habit. And habits don't feel dramatic. They feel normal. You start telling yourself, "I'm just thinking. I'm just planning. I'm just waiting for things to line up." But weeks become months. Months become years. And one day you wake up and realize you've spent too long preparing for a life you haven't started. That's when undecided becomes dangerous. Not because you're failing. Because you're fading. Time doesn't wait for clarity. Here's the hard truth that hits everyone sooner or later. Time doesn't wait for clarity. It moves forward whether you move or not. Life doesn't pause because you're confused. It doesn't slow down because you're scared. It doesn't stop because you're healing. It just keeps going. And if you don't choose, time will choose for you. That's the part people don't understand until it's already happened. If you don't choose your habits choose your future. If you don't choose your environment shapes you. If you don't choose your standards, life gives you default settings. And the default version of life is rarely the one you want. Not because life is cruel, because it's neutral. It follows momentum. And if you're not moving, you're still being carried, just not in a direction you picked. The real problem isn't speed. You think you're late, so you feel pressure to rush. But 2026 is not asking you to rush. It's asking you to choose. That's different. Rushing is panic. Choosing is power. Rushing says, I need to catch up. Choosing says, I'm taking control. You don't need to sprint. You don't need to fix everything in 1 week. You don't need to become a new person overnight. You just need to stop living like your life is a draft. Stop acting like you're waiting for permission. Stop treating your future like it's optional. Because the longer you stay undecided, the harder it becomes to trust yourself. And self-trust is everything. What choosing looks like in real life. Choosing doesn't always look like a dramatic moment. It can be quiet. It can look like you sitting on the edge of your bed, staring at your hands, feeling that familiar heaviness, and still deciding, okay, today I start. Not perfectly. Not confidently. Just honestly. Choosing can look like closing a tab that's distracting you and opening the document you've been avoiding. Saying no to a habit you've outgrown. Deleting an app you keep hiding behind. Making a call you've been putting off. Writing the first sentence even if it's awkward. Going for a walk even if you don't feel like it. Picking one direction and staying with it for long enough to see results. Choosing isn't about being fearless. Choosing is about being tired of living halfway. The fear behind the pause. Let's be real. Most people don't stay undecided because they don't know what to do. They stay undecided because they're afraid of what it will cost. If I commit, what if I fail? If I change, what if I lose people? If I choose this path, what if I regret it? So they keep life on pause. Because pause feels like protection. But protection can turn into a cage. And the longer you stay in that cage, the more you start believing it's who you are. I'm just someone who doesn't follow through. I'm just someone who can't decide. I'm just stuck. No, you're not stuck. You're undecided. And being undecided is something you can change, starting with one decision. One decision can break the spell. You don't need to solve your entire life. You just need one decision that proves you're done living on pause. One decision that says, I'm choosing me. Maybe it's choosing your health. Maybe it's choosing your craft. Maybe it's choosing your peace. Maybe it's choosing your future even if it scares you. And here's the beautiful part. Once you choose something, and commit to it, clarity starts coming. Not all at once but in pieces. Because clarity doesn't come from thinking. Clarity comes from doing. You learn what you want by stepping towards something. You learn what fits by trying it on. You learn what matters by giving it your time. A life you choose becomes clearer the longer you live it. A calm message for the year ahead. So if you're entering 2026 with that heavy feeling, like you're late, like you're behind, like you missed something, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not behind in life. You are undecided. And that's okay, until it's not. Because time doesn't wait for clarity. It moves forward whether you move or not. So 2026 is not asking you to rush. It's asking you to choose. Choose one thing. Commit to it. Stop living on pause. Not because you have to prove anything to anyone, but because your life is yours. And you deserve to live it like you mean it. After you begin. Many people are waiting. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Waiting to become confident before they start. Waiting to feel ready. Waiting for motivation to arrive like a signal that says, now. Now you can move. You see it everywhere, sometimes in others, sometimes in yourself. I'll start when I'm confident. I just need to feel ready. I'm not motivated enough yet. It sounds reasonable. Responsible even. You don't want to fail. You don't want to embarrass yourself. You don't want to begin something only to stop halfway and confirm the fear you already carry, that maybe you're not built for this. So you wait. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. The idea stays alive in your head but your body never moves toward it. You think about it often. Sometimes late at night. Sometimes in the quiet moments when you imagine a different version of your life. A version where you started earlier. But confidence never shows up. Motivation never knocks. Readiness remains just out of reach. And slowly something uncomfortable settles in. The realization that the version of you who feels confident enough to begin might not exist yet. That version is not waiting for you in the future. That version is built by starting. This truth is frustrating at first, almost unfair. It means there's no perfect emotional state coming to save you. No magical morning where fear disappears and clarity replaces doubt. You start to see the pattern. Every confident person you admire didn't start confident. They started unsure, nervous, clumsy. They stumbled through early attempts that no one talks about. They showed up before they believed in themselves. Confidence came later. After action. After mistakes. After discomfort. But when you're standing at the starting line, all you can feel is the fear. Your heart beats faster. Your mind runs ahead, imagining everything that could go wrong. You picture judgment, failure, wasted effort. So you tell yourself, not yet. You say you're preparing. You say you're thinking it through. You say you're waiting for the right time. But deep down you know the truth. You're waiting to feel different. Waiting to feel braver. Waiting to feel smarter. Waiting to feel like someone who doesn't doubt themselves. And that waiting costs more than you realize. Because while you wait, life keeps moving. Others begin, badly at first, imperfectly, awkwardly, but they begin. And with every small step they take, something shifts inside them. They learn. They adapt. They grow. You stay still. And staying still slowly convinces you that you can't move. That's how waiting becomes a habit. At some point, the frustration gets louder than the fear. You get tired of having the same conversations with yourself. Tired of planning without progress. Tired of carrying ideas that never turn into actions. You look honestly at your life and realize something important. Nothing is wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not lacking discipline. You've just been waiting for confidence to come before action. But confidence doesn't work that way. Confidence is built after action. It's built when you show up shaky and still do the thing. It's built when you survive mistakes and realize they didn't destroy you. It's built when you keep going even though you don't feel ready. Motivation works the same way. You thought motivation came first, that you had to feel inspired before you moved. But motivation follows movement. It's a response, not a requirement. When you take one small step, energy appears. When you begin, momentum grows. When you move, motivation catches up. You don't need to feel different to act. You need to act, and allow the feeling to change after. This idea feels risky, uncomfortable. It means stepping forward without guarantees. It means accepting that the first version will be messy, that you won't feel proud immediately, but it also feels honest. You realize you've been asking life for proof before giving effort, asking for confidence before earning it, asking for motivation without movement. That's not how growth works. Growth responds to action. So in 2026, you make a quiet decision. You stop waiting to feel different. You stop waiting for confidence. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop waiting for readiness. You start acting different. Not dramatically. Not perfectly. Just differently. You take imperfect action. You begin even though your voice shakes. You try even though you're unsure. You move forward even while doubt walks beside you. And something surprising happens. The fear doesn't disappear, but it weakens. The doubt doesn't vanish, but it loses control. The resistance doesn't go away, but it stops deciding for you. Each small action sends a message to your brain. I can do this. Each imperfect attempt builds evidence, not of perfection but of capability. You start trusting yourself, not because you feel confident but because you're proving that you don't need confidence to function. And slowly, almost quietly, confidence grows in the background. Not the loud, flashy kind. The steady kind. The kind that comes from knowing you can move even when it's uncomfortable. You understand now. Perfect intention means nothing without action. You've had great intentions before. You meant to start. Meant to change. Meant to commit. But intention without action stays stuck in your head, turning into regret. Imperfect action, on the other hand, creates reality. It creates learning. It creates progress. It creates momentum. Every time. So you choose action, not because you feel ready but because you're tired of waiting. You choose to begin, not because you're fearless but because you're done letting fear decide. And as days turn into weeks, you look back and realize something important. You didn't become confident then start. You started, and confidence followed. That's how it always works. In 2026, you stop waiting for a feeling that never arrives. You become someone who acts, even imperfectly. Because imperfect action beats perfect intention. Every time. The quiet power of keeping a promise. Big goals sound exciting. They always have. They light something up inside you when you first think about them. They make your chest feel fuller. They make the future feel brighter. You imagine the version of yourself who finally gets there. More confident. More disciplined. More respected. And for a moment you believe that version is just one decision away. But then real life shows up. The alarm rings early and your body feels heavy. The plan you made yesterday feels harder today. The excitement fades faster than you expected. And slowly, without meaning to, you drift back into the familiar. Not because you don't want more, but because wanting and doing are not the same thing. That's where most people get stuck. Why big goals don't stick. Big goals feel powerful because they're clean and simple. I'll change my life. I'll become disciplined. I'll finally be consistent. But big goals don't tell you what to do on a random Tuesday. When you're tired, distracted, and slightly overwhelmed. They don't help you when motivation disappears. They don't carry you through discomfort. Big goals excite the mind. But they don't train behavior. And behavior is where change actually lives. That's why so many people start strong and fade quietly. Not because they're weak. Not because they lack potential. But because goals alone don't build trust. Habits do. The small moments no one sees. Small habits don't look impressive. They don't make good announcements. They don't get applause. They don't feel heroic. Waking up when you said you would. Even when the bed feels warm and safe. Doing the thing you promised yourself. Even when it feels uncomfortable, boring, or inconvenient. These moments happen quietly. No one is watching. No one is impressed. And that's exactly why they matter. Because these moments aren't for anyone else. They're for you. The relationship you keep forgetting. There's a relationship in your life that shapes everything else. It's not the loudest one. It's not always obvious. But it's the one that determines how you show up everywhere else. It's your relationship with yourself. Every time you say, I'll do this, and don't, that relationship weakens. Not dramatically. Quietly. Your brain notices. Your nervous system notices. It starts to believe your words don't mean much. And when your words lose weight, so does your confidence. Why confidence feels so far away. Confidence isn't loud. It's not arrogance. It's not motivation. Confidence is trust. It's the calm belief that you'll follow through, even when things get uncomfortable. And that belief isn't built by thinking differently. It's built by evidence. Each time you keep a promise to yourself, you collect proof. I do what I say. I don't disappear when it's hard. I can be relied on. And slowly that proof stacks. Not in public. Inside you. Discomfort is the price of self-respect. There's a moment that happens again and again. You feel resistance. Your body wants comfort. Your mind offers excuses. Do it later. You've had a long day. Missing once won't matter. And in that moment you're standing at a crossroads. Not between success and failure. Between self-trust and self-doubt. Doing the thing even when it's uncomfortable isn't about discipline. It's about self-respect. It's choosing long-term trust over short-term relief. And that choice, repeated daily, changes everything. Why this has nothing to do with impressing anyone. At some point you realize something important. Trying to impress people is exhausting. You chase validation. You compare timelines. You measure progress by how it looks from the outside. And no matter how much you do, it never feels like enough. Because external approval doesn't build internal stability. In fact, it distracts you from the one thing that matters most. Keeping your word to yourself. The shift that changes everything. One day something shifts, not loudly, not dramatically. You stop asking, how does this look? And start asking, did I keep my promise? You stop caring if the habit is impressive. You start caring if it's consistent. A simple wake-up time. A small daily action. A quiet commitment you don't announce. And you keep it. Not perfectly, but honestly. What happens when you keep showing up? At first, nothing feels different. The habit still feels small. The effort still feels quiet. But inside you, something is changing. Your mind starts to relax. Your inner voice softens. The constant self-criticism loses its edge. Because you're no longer arguing with yourself. You're cooperating. And that creates peace. Self-trust changes how you move through life. When you trust yourself, you stop overthinking every decision. You don't need hype. You don't need pressure. You don't need to scare yourself into action. You just do what you said you would. And that reliability spills into everything. Work feels steadier. Stress feels more manageable. Setbacks feel less personal. Because your foundation is solid. Why small habits win? Small habits don't overwhelm your system. They don't demand perfection. They don't require motivation. They only require return. And return is a skill you can build. Miss a day? You come back. Feel off? You still show up small. Life gets messy? You adjust, not quit. That's how lives actually change. Not through intensity. Through consistency. 2026 isn't about becoming someone new. In 2026, you don't need to impress anyone. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to announce big transformations. You need something quieter. You need self-trust. And self-trust is built the same way every time. One kept promise. Then another. Then another. The future built quietly. One day you'll look back and realize something surprising. You didn't change your life overnight. You changed it slowly. Through mornings when you got up anyway. Through actions you took when no one cared. Through promises you kept even when it was uncomfortable. And that version of you? They're confident. Not because they're perfect. Because they're reliable. A simple question to end with. So as 2026 approaches, maybe ask yourself something different. Not, how do I impress people? But, what promise can I keep today? Because big goals sound exciting. But small habits change lives. And the life you want is built in moments no one sees. Except you. Discipline isn't punishment. For a long time you thought discipline had to hurt. Not physically, though sometimes that too. But mentally. You pictured discipline as something harsh. Something cold. Something that demanded you become less human. Discipline in your head looked like a person who never got tired. Never got distracted. Never made excuses. Someone robotic. Someone intense. And because you weren't that, you assumed discipline wasn't for you. You assumed you needed more motivation instead. You told yourself you'd start when you felt ready. When you felt inspired. When you felt energetic. But life didn't wait for your motivation. Life kept coming, messy, noisy, unpredictable. And motivation kept doing what motivation always does. It showed up randomly. And then it disappeared. The cycle you know too well. You've lived this cycle enough times to recognize it. One day you wake up feeling like you can change everything. You make a plan. You feel hopeful. You clean your space. You write goals. You promise yourself, this time is different. And for a few days you move like someone who believes in themselves. Then something small happens. You sleep late. You have a stressful day. Someone says something that ruins your mood. You get overwhelmed. You feel tired in a way that isn't just physical. And suddenly the plan feels heavy. You skip one day. And then your mind begins its usual story. See, you can't stay consistent. You always do this. Why even try? So you stop. Not because you don't care. Because it's painful to keep promising yourself something and not following through. Every broken promise feels like proof. And the more proof your brain collects, the harder it is to begin again. What you thought discipline was. You thought discipline was punishment. You thought it meant being harsh with yourself. Like you had to bully yourself into progress. You believed the only way to change was to be stricter, tougher, louder inside your head. But that kind of discipline, if it even deserves the name, doesn't last. Because fear-based discipline creates short-term action and long-term burnout. It may push you for a week, maybe two. But eventually, your nervous system gets tired of being chased. You start avoiding your goals. Not because you're lazy. Because your mind associates them with pressure, shame, and exhaustion. So you retreat. And the cycle repeats. The quiet truth you missed. Then, maybe slowly, maybe painfully, you begin to notice something. Every time you try to change through harshness, you break. And every time you break, you become more convinced that you're the problem. But what if you're not? What if the approach is the problem? What if discipline was never meant to feel like punishment? What if discipline, real discipline, was actually a form of care? Not control. Care. A different definition. One day you hear a sentence that lands differently. Not because it's fancy. Because it's true. Discipline is saying, I matter enough to do this, even when I don't feel like it. That's it. No anger. No self-hate. No dramatic hype. Just one quiet act of self-respect. And something about that softens you. Because it reframes everything. It means discipline isn't something you do to yourself. It's something you do for yourself. The moment you understand even when I don't feel like it, that part is the real part. Because anyone can take action when they feel motivated. When energy is high, discipline feels easy. But most of life isn't lived in high energy. Most of life is lived in even when. Even when you're tired. Even when you're irritated. Even when you don't feel confident. Even when you feel behind. Even when no one is watching. Even when it's uncomfortable. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about not abandoning yourself when your feelings change. Short-term comfort versus long-term peace. This is where it gets real. Because you're not choosing between good and bad. You're choosing between two comforts. Short-term comfort feels like staying in bed, scrolling a little longer, eating whatever numbs the day, putting it off just for today, avoiding discomfort. It feels good immediately. But later, it costs you. It costs you peace. Long-term peace feels different. It doesn't always feel good in the moment. It feels like getting up when you said you would, doing the small task you promised, choosing a healthier option even when you crave the easy one, sitting with discomfort instead of escaping it, taking one step forward when you'd rather hide. It's not loud, but it's stable. Long-term peace is waking up without self-disappointment. It's going to bed knowing you didn't betray yourself. And that peace is worth more than the comfort you keep chasing. A realistic day. Picture a normal day. Not a perfect one. A real one. You wake up and you already feel behind. Maybe your phone is right there. The world is loud before you even stand up. Your mind starts listing problems like it's a morning ritual. And your body wants comfort. It wants to stay still. It wants to avoid effort. It wants to postpone. But this time you don't argue with yourself. You don't say, "You're lazy." You don't threaten yourself with failure. You simply say, "I matter enough to do this." So you get up. Not dramatically. Not with a perfect routine. You just get up. You wash your face. Drink water. Stand in the kitchen for a second and breathe like you're trying to remember who you are. Then you do the smallest version of the habit. 10 minutes. 5 minutes. 1 page. 1 stretch. 1 task. Something that proves you didn't abandon yourself. That's discipline. Discipline feels like love, not war. This is important. Discipline is not a fight. It's not you versus you. It's you taking care of you. It's you protecting your future self from your current impulses. Because impulses are not evil. They're human. But impulses are short-sighted. They want relief now. Discipline is the part of you that says, "I hear you. I know you want comfort. But I also know what happens after comfort." It's gentle, firm, kind. Why motivation can't be the foundation. Motivation is a mood. And moods change. Motivation is influenced by sleep, food, weather, stress, hormones, messages you get, and the way you feel about yourself on a random afternoon. If your whole life depends on motivation, your progress will always be fragile. Because motivation comes and goes. It leaves when things get hard. It leaves when results are slow. It leaves when no one claps. It leaves when you're tired. And that's normal. You're not broken because motivation disappears. You're human. That's why motivation can't be the foundation. Discipline has to be. How discipline is built. Discipline isn't built through intensity. It's built through small choices repeated. One moment of "I don't feel like it," followed by "I'll do it anyway." Not perfectly. Not dramatically. Just consistently. Because every time you follow through, you rebuild trust with yourself. You collect evidence. And evidence becomes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who always quits. You start seeing yourself as someone who returns. That identity is powerful. Because once you believe you're the type of person who shows up, you show up more. When motivation leaves, there will be days when motivation is nowhere. Days when you feel flat. Days when you feel heavy. Days when you feel like nothing matters. Those days are not proof that you're failing. They are the days discipline was made for. Discipline doesn't shout on those days. It whispers. It says, "Do the minimum but do it. Keep the promise even if it's small. Don't break the chain because of a mood." Discipline stays when motivation leaves. That's its job. 2026, a different approach. So in 2026, don't chase motivation. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't expect a burst of energy to save you. Instead, build something quieter. Build discipline. Not as punishment. As proof that you matter. As a daily act of self-respect. As a steady choice for long-term peace over short-term comfort. A promise you can actually keep. Maybe you don't need a massive plan. Maybe you don't need to transform overnight. Maybe you just need one promise you can keep. One habit small enough to repeat. And then you keep it, especially when you don't feel like it. Because the truth is, that's where your life changes. Not in the big motivational moments, but in the quiet, ordinary ones. Where no one is watching. And you choose yourself anyway. Look around your life. Not just the big things, the job title, the house, the phone in your hand. I mean, really look. Look at the small details you usually ignore because they feel normal. The people you listen to. The content you consume. The habits you repeat. Because whether you realize it or not, they are shaping your mindset every day. And the scary part is this. Most of the time it's happening in the background, quietly, automatically, without your permission. You wake up and the first thing your mind touches is someone else's voice. A notification, a clip, a comment, a headline that makes you anxious, a video that makes you compare, a post that makes you feel like you're behind. And you don't even notice the shift, but your mood changes, your energy changes, your confidence changes. Then you go into your day carrying that weight, wondering why you feel heavy, why you feel stuck, why your mind feels noisy. But it's not random. It's your environment. Your environment isn't just where you live. It's what you repeatedly allow into your mind. It's the conversations you absorb. It's the jokes you laugh at that slowly lower your standards. It's the friends who always complain, always blame, always stay negative, until negativity becomes your natural language too. It's the small content you consume that trains your attention to be scattered, your patience to be weak, your focus to be fragile. It's the routines you call normal. Because habits are not just actions. Habits are instructions. Every day your habits teach your brain what matters, what's safe, what's possible, what's worth trying. And if your habits are built around comfort, distraction, and avoidance, your brain learns comfort, distraction, and avoidance. This is why so many people have big goals, but small environments. They want to become disciplined, but their phone is their alarm clock and their entertainment and their escape. They want to focus, but their day is full of noise. They want to grow, but they spend hours around people who mock growth. And then they blame themselves. They say, I'm not motivated. I'm lazy. I just don't have willpower. But listen to this carefully. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your environment. Let that line hit you. Because it explains so much. It explains why you keep repeating patterns you hate. Why you keep going back to habits you promised you'd quit. Why you keep losing momentum after a few days. You're not weak. You're surrounded by systems that make weakness easy. Your environment is either a ladder or a trap. A ladder helps you climb without forcing you to fight every step alone. A trap makes you feel like you're stuck, even when you want to move. So the real question is not, do you have big dreams? The real question is, does your environment support them? Think about it. If your circle always talks about problems but never solutions, you'll start thinking like that too. If your social feed is full of drama, flexing, and negativity, your mind will begin to crave that energy. If your room is messy, your sleep is broken, your routines are random, your brain will live in chaos. And then you'll wonder why you can't feel consistent. Your mind is not just your thoughts. Your mind is also what you repeatedly allow around you. That's why changing your mindset is not only an inner battle, it's an environmental one. And in 2026, this is the shift. Design your surroundings to support who you're becoming, not who you used to be. That line alone can change your year. Because if you're serious about growth, you have to stop living like the old version of you. The old you had unlimited access to distractions. The old you stayed around people who drained you. The old you consumed content that made you feel small. The old you repeated habits that kept you stuck. And maybe it wasn't intentional. Maybe it was just what you fell into. But 2026 is about doing something different. It starts with a simple, honest inventory. Look at the people you listen to. Are they building you or breaking you? Not in a dramatic way. Most damage isn't dramatic. It's subtle. It's the friend who laughs every time you mention a goal. The person who turns everything into a joke so you stop taking your future seriously. The one who only calls when they need something and leaves you drained after every conversation. Now look at the people who inspire you. The ones who speak with clarity. Who push you without insulting you. Who believe you can grow, even when you doubt yourself. In 2026, choose more of that. Not because you hate anyone. Not because you're trying to be better. But because you're trying to be healthier. Because you can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. Now look at the content you consume. Be honest. Is it helping you become stronger? Or is it keeping you distracted? A little entertainment is fine. But if most of your content is just noise, your mind will become noise too. Your attention is your life. Where your attention goes, your life follows. So if your attention is constantly being hijacked, you'll feel like you have no control. In 2026, you don't need to delete everything. You don't need to become extreme. You just need to become intentional. Follow content that teaches, that calms you, that pushes you forward. Unfollow content that drains you, triggers you, makes you compare, or keeps you stuck. Your feed is not just your feed. It's your mental diet. And a bad mental diet creates a weak mindset. Now look at the habits you repeat. The habits that don't look like habits because they're so normal. The late nights. The instant scrolling when you feel bored. The procrastination breaks that turn into hours. The way you avoid discomfort and then wonder why life feels hard. Your habits are building the person you're becoming. Every day. Even when you don't feel it. So in 2026, design your environment like you would design a future. Make the good habits easy. Put the book on your pillow. Put the water bottle on your desk. Put your workout clothes where you can't miss them. And make the bad habits harder. Keep your phone away from your bed. Turn off notifications. Remove the apps that steal hours from you. These small changes don't look motivational, but they work, because they don't rely on willpower. They rely on structure. And structure is what carries you when motivation disappears. This is what most people don't understand. You don't need to fight your environment every day. You need to redesign it once. And let it work for you. Because in the end, the strongest people aren't always the most motivated. They're the most prepared. They create surroundings that pull them forward. So when they wake up tired, they still move. When they feel lazy, they still show up. When they feel doubtful, they still take the next step. Not because they're superhuman, but because their environment supports the person they're trying to become. And that's the goal for 2026. To build a life where progress feels natural. A life where the default setting is growth. A life where your surroundings remind you daily. This is who you are now, not who you used to be. Because if you want a new year, you need a new setup. New inputs. New routines. New conversations. New boundaries. And yes, at first it will feel unfamiliar. Because growth always feels unfamiliar. Your old environment will try to pull you back. Old habits will call your name. Old comfort will look tempting. But each time you choose the environment that supports your future, you get stronger. And one day you'll realize something quietly changed. Your mindset feels cleaner. Your focus feels sharper. Your confidence feels steadier. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped living in a place that was designed for your past. Look around your life. The people you listen to. The content you consume. The habits you repeat. They are shaping you every day. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your environment. So in 2026, design your surroundings to support who you're becoming. Not who you used to be. And that decision, that one decision, is how you begin to reset everything. The quiet drain of comparison. Comparison steals energy. Not all at once. Not in a dramatic way you can clearly notice. It steals it slowly, silently, a little at a time. You don't wake up one day feeling completely empty. You wake up feeling slightly behind, slightly discouraged, slightly less motivated than you were before. And you can't always explain why. Because comparison doesn't attack loudly. It whispers. How comparison sneaks in. It usually starts small. You're scrolling, not looking for anything serious. Just passing time. Then you see it. Someone your age doing better. Someone who started after you but moved faster. Someone who looks confident, consistent, successful. They're traveling. They're winning. They're building something that seems impressive. And without meaning to, you compare. Not aggressively. Not consciously. Just a quiet thought. I should be further by now. That single thought doesn't ruin your day. But it stays. The energy that quietly disappears. Comparison doesn't just make you feel bad. It drains energy. It pulls focus away from what you're doing and places it on what others are doing. It turns your attention outward instead of inward. You start measuring your progress using someone else's timeline, someone else's resources, someone else's circumstances. And suddenly what you're doing feels smaller. Not because it is, but because you're viewing it through the wrong lens. Someone will always be ahead. Someone will always be ahead. No matter what level you reach, no matter how far you go, there will always be someone with more money, more recognition, more speed, more reach. If you wait to feel successful until no one is ahead of you, you'll be waiting forever. Because the finish line keeps moving. And comparison makes sure you never feel like you've arrived. The illusion of more successful. Someone will always look more successful. But look is the key word. You see the highlight, not the struggle behind it, not the nights they doubted themselves, not the sacrifices you didn't witness. Comparison works with incomplete information. You compare your behind the scenes to someone else's polished moment, and then you judge yourself for not matching it. That's not fair. And deep down you know it. How comparison shrinks your journey. Comparison doesn't make their journey bigger. It makes yours feel smaller. You stop appreciating how far you've come. You stop noticing your own growth. You stop giving yourself credit for surviving things that almost broke you. You overlook the effort you've put in, the lessons you've learned, the strength you've built quietly. Because your eyes are no longer on your path. They're on someone else's. The cost you don't see. The real cost of comparison isn't jealousy. It's distraction. It pulls your energy away from creation and places it into evaluation. Instead of building, you're measuring. Instead of improving, you're judging. And judgment slows progress. Because focus is limited. Where you place it matters. Focus is where progress lives. Focus creates progress. Not talent alone. Not motivation alone. Focus. When your attention stays on your own work, your own habits, your own improvement, something changes. You move forward without constantly stopping to look sideways. You make decisions based on your values, not someone else's results. You build momentum quietly. And momentum is powerful. It doesn't feel exciting at first, but it compounds. What happens when you look back instead of sideways? There's a different way to measure growth. Not by looking around. By looking back. Back at who you were last year. Back at what used to be hard for you. Back at habits you didn't have before. Back at strength you didn't believe you possessed. That comparison is different. That comparison builds instead of drains. The only measure that matters in 2026. In 2026, measure yourself by one thing only. Are you better than last year? That's it. Not better than them. Not faster than others. Not further ahead on someone else's timeline. Better than you. More consistent than last year. More aware than last year. More disciplined than last year. More honest with yourself than last year. That kind of progress is real. And it lasts. What better actually means? Better doesn't mean perfect. It doesn't mean you never fail. It doesn't mean every plan works. It doesn't mean life suddenly becomes smooth. Better means you quit less easily. You recover faster. You take responsibility sooner. Better means you don't abandon yourself as quickly as before. You don't give up at the first discomfort. You don't talk yourself out of effort as easily. That's growth. Quiet. Unseen. But powerful. Why this way is more peaceful. When you stop comparing, something unexpected happens. Your mind feels lighter. You're no longer racing imaginary competitors. You're no longer stressed about where you should be. You're present. You focus on today's effort instead of tomorrow's outcome. You build without constantly questioning your worth. And peace replaces pressure. The confidence that comes from staying in your lane. Confidence grows when you stay in your lane. Not because you're better than others, but because you're aligned with yourself. You trust your pace. You trust your process. You trust that consistency will take you where you need to go. And that trust is calming. It removes the urge to rush. The urge to prove. The urge to compete with lives you don't fully understand. Your journey was never meant to look like theirs. Your journey was designed for you. Your background. Your challenges. Your timing. Your lessons. When you compare it to someone else's, you disrespect that design. Not intentionally, but unknowingly. Because you forget that growth isn't a race. It's a relationship with yourself. What happens when you commit to this mindset? When you commit to measuring yourself this way, your days change. You wake up asking, what can I do a little better today? Not, how do I catch up to them? You celebrate small wins instead of dismissing them. You notice improvement instead of chasing perfection. You feel proud without needing validation. And slowly, steadily, you build something solid. Progress without pressure. This mindset removes unnecessary pressure. You're no longer trying to win a race that never ends. You're no longer chasing approval from people who aren't watching anyway. You're focused. And focused effort compounds. Day after day. Week after week. Until one day you look back and realize, you've gone further than you thought. The irony of comparison. Here's the irony. The moment you stop comparing is often the moment you start progressing faster. Because all your energy returns to where it belongs. Your work improves. Your discipline strengthens. Your confidence grows naturally. Not because you tried to be better than others. Because you stopped wasting energy watching them. Let 2026 be simple. Let 2026 be simple. No endless measuring. No constant checking. No mental scoreboards. Just one question at the end of the day. Did I move forward even a little? If the answer is yes, you're on track. That's enough. This is a sustainable way to live. Comparison burns you out. Focus builds you up. Comparison creates urgency without direction. Focus creates direction without panic. And direction is what creates real progress. So remember this. Someone will always be ahead. Someone will always look more successful. That doesn't make your journey smaller. It makes it yours. And when you honor that, when you stay focused on becoming a better version of yourself, you stop chasing. You start building. Quietly. Consistently. With peace. The quiet way change actually happens. Transformation rarely announces itself. There's no countdown, no dramatic music, no moment where the world stops and says, "This is it. This is the day everything changes." Most of the time, nothing feels different at all. You wake up. You check the time. You move through the same routine. The same streets. The same responsibilities. The same thoughts. And if you're honest, part of you wonders if any of it is working. Because when we imagine transformation, we imagine something loud. A sudden burst of motivation. A clear before and after moment. A version of ourselves that feels obviously stronger, smarter, calmer, better. But real change doesn't work like that. Real change is quiet. The silence of progress. Transformation happens in silence. In the moments no one sees. In the effort that doesn't get noticed. In the days that feel ordinary, sometimes painfully ordinary. It happens when your alarm goes off and you don't feel like getting up, but you do anyway. When you sit down to work even though your mind feels scattered. When you choose the small right thing instead of the easy wrong one. No applause follows you. No one congratulates you for showing up. There's no instant feedback telling you, yes, this matters. So your brain starts asking questions. Is this doing anything? Why do I still feel the same? Shouldn't I be further along by now? Those questions usually show up on boring days. The boring days everyone tries to avoid. Boring days don't feel important. They don't feel like progress. They don't feel inspiring. They don't feel worth talking about. They're the days where nothing goes wrong, but nothing goes right either. You do the workout but it doesn't feel amazing. You read the page but it doesn't change your life. You show up but no breakthrough happens. And because nothing dramatic occurs, your mind starts undervaluing the effort. Anyone could do this. This doesn't feel special. Maybe I'm wasting my time. That's when most people quit. Not because they failed, but because the change was too quiet to be recognized. One workout that feels pointless. Think about one workout. Not the best one you've ever had. Not the one where you felt strong and energized and proud. The boring one. The one where your body feels stiff. Where your breathing feels heavy. Where every movement feels slower than it should. You finish it, wipe the sweat, and think that didn't feel like much. But your muscles felt it. Your nervous system felt it. Your discipline felt it. That workout didn't change your body overnight. But it sent a signal. I show up even when it's uncomfortable. That signal matters more than the workout itself. One page that doesn't feel life-changing. Or think about one page read. Not a chapter that hits you emotionally. Not a sentence that feels like it was written just for you. Just one page. You read it while distracted. You forget half of it by the next day. You don't feel smarter afterward. But your brain registered something important. I am someone who reads. That identity shift is subtle but powerful. Because the brain changes through repetition, not intensity. The hidden work of repetition. Transformation happens in repetition. Doing the same small thing again. And again. And again. Repetition isn't exciting. It's predictable. It's routine. And that's exactly why it works. Your body adapts through repeated stress. Your mind learns through repeated exposure. Your character forms through repeated choices. One honest effort doesn't change your life. But thousands of honest efforts quietly do. The problem is, while you're in it, it feels like nothing is happening. The phase where you feel stuck. There's a phase almost everyone goes through. You've been consistent for a while. You haven't quit. You haven't skipped. You haven't given up. And still, you feel the same. Same doubts. Same impatience. Same insecurity. This phase is dangerous. Because it convinces you that consistency isn't working. But what's actually happening is something invisible. Your foundation is being built. And foundations don't look impressive while they're being laid. They're underground. Messy. Slow. But without them, nothing lasts. Change you don't notice while it's happening. Here's the strange part. Transformation often happens without your permission. Without your awareness. You don't wake up one morning and think, today I became disciplined. You don't notice the exact moment your mindset shifts. You don't mark the day you became calmer. You don't remember the rep that made you stronger. It sneaks up on you. One day you respond differently than you used to. You don't overreact the same way. You don't quit as fast. You don't doubt yourself as loudly. And you pause for a second, confused. When did that change? You don't know. Because it wasn't one moment. It was hundreds. Waking up different. Over time you wake up different. Not dramatically. Not like a movie montage. Just slightly. You handle stress a little better. You make decisions with less hesitation. You trust yourself more than before. You don't feel like a brand new person. You feel like a more grounded version of yourself. And that's when it hits you. Something worked. even though it felt boring, even though it felt slow, even though you doubted it along the way. Why consistency feels unrewarding at first. Consistency doesn't reward you immediately. It tests you first. It asks, can you keep going without praise? Can you show up without seeing results? Can you trust the process when it feels empty? Most people want proof before commitment. But consistency requires commitment before proof. And that's why it's rare. The lie of motivation. Motivation is loud. Consistency is quiet. Motivation shows up when things feel exciting. Consistency stays when things feel dull. Motivation says, let's go. Consistency says, again, and again, and again. That's why consistency wins. Not because it feels better, but because it lasts longer. The identity shift nobody talks about. Something deeper happens when you stay consistent. Your identity changes. You stop asking, do I feel like doing this? You start saying, this is just what I do. You become someone who keeps promises. Someone who shows up. Someone who doesn't rely on mood. And once your identity changes, everything else follows. Discipline becomes simpler. Decision-making becomes clearer. Self-respect grows quietly. Why boring is a superpower. Boring is underrated. Boring means stable. Boring means repeatable. Boring means sustainable. Excitement burns fast. Boring burns slow. And slow burning change is the kind that lasts. The kind you don't have to rebuild every year. The long view. Consistency doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to return. After a bad day. After a missed session. After a moment of doubt. Return to the habit. Return to the effort. Return to the path. That return is the real work. A message for 2026. In 2026, don't chase transformation. Practice consistency. Stay boring. Stay consistent. Stay patient. Do the workout even when it feels average. Read the page even when it feels forgettable. Show up even when it feels pointless. Because one day, quietly, you'll realize something has changed. And you won't even know when it happened. That's the power of consistency. Not loud. Not dramatic. But real. And real change is the kind that stays. Move quietly. You don't need approval. Not today. Not this year. Not ever. This realization doesn't arrive all at once. It comes slowly, through moments that sting a little more than they should. A raised eyebrow. A careless comment. Someone asking, why are you doing this? In a tone that already carries doubt. You feel it in the pause after you share an idea. In the silence where encouragement should be. In the way people nod politely but don't really listen. For a long time you tried to explain yourself. You explained your goals so they would make sense to others. You explained your choices so they wouldn't seem risky. You explained your pace so no one would think you were falling behind. You learned how to justify your dreams before you even began chasing them. And every explanation took a little piece of your energy. You don't notice it at first. You tell yourself it's normal. People ask questions. People care. People want to understand. But deep down something feels off. The more you explain, the smaller your vision starts to feel. The more you seek approval, the less confident you become. The more you look outward for validation, the quieter your own voice gets. At some point, you realize you've been living as if your life needs permission. Permission to change. Permission to grow. Permission to take a path that doesn't look like everyone else's. And that's exhausting. You don't need validation. Not the kind that comes from likes, praise, or agreement. Not the kind that disappears the moment people stop paying attention. You felt that emptiness before. The short-lived high of being seen, followed by the anxiety of keeping it up. The fear of disappointing people once they have expectations of you. Validation feels good, but it's unstable. It shifts with opinions. It depends on moods. It fades quickly. And worst of all, it trains you to measure your worth through someone else's eyes. You don't need everyone to understand your path. Most people won't. Not because your path is wrong, but because it's not theirs. They see life through their own fears, experiences, and limits. They project their doubts onto your decisions. They warn you about risks they never took. They question dreams they never allowed themselves to have. Sometimes they mean well. Sometimes they don't. Either way, their understanding is not required. This is your life. Not a group project. Not a performance. Not something that needs a committee vote. Your timeline doesn't need to match anyone else's. Your priorities don't need to be explained. Your silence doesn't need to be filled with updates. Once you really let that sink in, something inside you relaxes. You stop oversharing. You stop announcing plans too early. You stop defending choices that already feel right to you. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting something fragile. Growth is fragile in the beginning. It needs space. It needs patience. It needs quiet. You've noticed how easily excitement leaks out when too many people are involved. How doubt multiplies when opinions pile up. How momentum slows when you start managing reactions instead of making progress. So you choose a different approach. You move quietly. Not secretly. Just intentionally. You let your actions become private. You let your goals live with you instead of being scattered across conversations. You focus on what needs to be done rather than how it looks. There's a calm in that. No pressure to perform. No pressure to impress. No pressure to explain setbacks or delays. You work consistently. Not obsessively. Not perfectly. Just consistently. You show up on ordinary days. Days when motivation is low. Days when nothing exciting happens. Days when progress feels invisible. Those are the days that matter most. You build routines instead of chasing inspiration. You take small steps when big ones feel overwhelming. You accept that progress is often quiet and slow. And slowly you begin to trust the process. You realize something important. Real growth rarely announces itself. It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't make noise. It happens in early mornings. In focused afternoons. In late nights where you choose discipline over distraction. It happens when no one is watching. And that's where strength is built. You stop checking if people notice. You stop wondering if they approve. You stop waiting for reassurance. You let results speak later. Not now. Not halfway through. Later. You understand that results don't need defending. They don't argue. They don't explain. They simply exist. And when they arrive, they make sense without words. There's something deeply empowering about this shift. You feel lighter. Less reactive. More grounded. You're no longer shaped by opinions. You're shaped by effort. By consistency. By the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're building something real. You still have doubts. That doesn't disappear. But doubt no longer controls you. It walks beside you instead of leading. You still care what people think, but it no longer decides your direction. You learn that peace comes when your actions align with your values, not with applause. And as 2026 approaches, you see it clearly. This year is not about explaining yourself. It's about building yourself. Brick by brick. Day by day. Without noise. You don't need approval to become who you're meant to be. You don't need validation to stay consistent. You don't need understanding to move forward. You need focus. You need patience. You need belief in the quiet work you're doing. So you keep moving. Quietly. Steadily. With intention. And one day, without announcing it, you'll look back and realize you became everything you were trying so hard to explain before. Only now you don't need to say a word. The results speak for you. Here's the truth. 2026 will pass, whether you change or not. It will move forward the way time always does. Quietly. Constantly. Unbothered by your plans. It won't pause because you're tired. It won't slow down because you're unsure. It won't wait for you to feel ready. One day it will be January. Then suddenly it will be March. Then you'll blink and it will be July. And then, somehow, you'll find yourself standing near the end of the year again, wondering where it went. This part is certain. The year will pass. The only uncertainty is what you do while it's passing. The question that matters. Most people ask the wrong question. They ask, will the year be different? They hope the year will feel lighter, kinder, easier, more fair. They hope circumstances will finally shift. They hope life will stop being so heavy. But years don't change people. People change people. So the question isn't whether 2026 will be different. The question is, will you be? Not in a dramatic, unrealistic way. Not in a new personality overnight kind of way. Just, will you show up differently? Will you stop disappearing from your own promises? Will you stop waiting for motivation to rescue you? Will you stop giving up the moment it gets uncomfortable? Because that's where most lives stay stuck. Not in lack of ability. In lack of follow-through. The quiet cost of giving up early. You know what giving up too early feels like. It doesn't always look like quitting loudly. Sometimes it looks like silence. A plan you made that you stopped mentioning. A habit you started that you quietly let go of. A goal you wrote down that you stopped believing in. You don't even announce that you've given up. You just slowly stop showing up. And at first there's relief. Because pressure disappears. But then something else appears. That dull feeling. That quiet disappointment you try not to name. Feels like carrying a small apology inside you all day. Not to anyone else. To yourself. Because deep down you know you're capable of more. And the frustrating part is, you don't even need to become extraordinary. You just need to stop quitting on yourself. The apology you keep repeating. Think about how many times you've apologized to yourself. Not out loud, just in your head. I'll start again tomorrow. I'll do better next week. I'll get serious after this month. I'll fix it soon. At first, those apologies feel hopeful. They feel like a fresh chance. But over time, something changes. The apology stops feeling like a plan and starts feeling like a pattern. And patterns become identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who starts and stops. Someone who gets excited and fades. Someone who tries but never stays. And that identity is heavy because it makes every new attempt harder. Your own brain begins to doubt you. Not because it wants to hurt you. Because it's learned your promises don't always last. Why this year can't be another repeat. If you're honest, you don't want another year of the same cycle. Not because you want perfection. Because you're tired. Tired of being inspired for a moment and then losing it. Tired of watching yourself procrastinate and pretending it doesn't matter. Tired of setting goals that become guilt instead of growth. Tired of that strange feeling, like you're watching your own life from the outside. You don't want another apology. You want pride. Not fake pride. Not ego. Real pride. The kind that comes from knowing you didn't abandon yourself. The kind that sits in your chest quietly when you lay down at night. The kind that says, I showed up today. Trying again but differently. This time you don't need to try with fear. You don't need to pressure yourself into panic. You don't need to make a huge list and promise to become perfect in 7 days. You just need to try honestly. And honesty looks like this. Admitting you've been tired. Admitting you've been inconsistent. Admitting you've been stuck in avoidance. Admitting you're scared of failing again. Admitting you sometimes don't believe in yourself. Not to shame yourself. To tell the truth. Because truth is the beginning of change. When you stop pretending, you can finally move. Not perfectly. Not fearlessly. But honestly. This line matters because it gives you permission to be human. Not perfectly. You will have messy days. You will miss things sometimes. You will wake up late. You will lose focus. You will feel unmotivated. You will have moments where you want to disappear again. Not fearlessly. You will feel fear. Fear of failing. Fear of wasting time. Fear of being judged. Fear of trying hard and still not getting results. That fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. But honestly, that's the part that changes everything. Honesty means you show up anyway. Even with fear. Even with doubts. Even without motivation. You show up not to prove anything to anyone else, but to build trust with yourself. What showing up actually looks like. Showing up isn't always dramatic. It's often small. It looks like getting up when you said you would, most days. Doing the one habit you promised, even if it's the minimum version. Taking the walk not because it's impressive but because it's consistent. Writing one paragraph. Reading one page. Practicing 10 minutes. Showing up is doing the thing. Even when it's uncomfortable. And no one is watching. Especially then. Because those are the moments that build identity. A year from now. Picture it. A year from now. It's late December again. The air feels different. The year feels tired. And you're sitting somewhere quiet, maybe alone for a moment. And you're looking back. You'll either be carrying another apology. Or you'll be carrying pride. Not because you became someone else. Because you became someone consistent. Because you stopped quitting early. Because you kept showing up even when your feelings changed. Because you did the hard thing, you stayed. And that pride will feel lighter than any motivation you ever chased. The one decision that starts it. Pride doesn't come from a perfect year. It comes from one decision. A decision to stop treating your life like something you can restart later. A decision to stop waiting for the perfect mood. A decision to stop using fear as a reason to delay. A decision to try again, today. Not in a huge, overwhelming way. In a way you can repeat. Because repetition changes you. Not intensity. Why you owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself to try. Not because you're broken. But because you've been carrying the weight of almost for too long. Almost disciplined. Almost consistent. Almost confident. Almost focused. Almost is exhausting. It keeps you in a state of unfinished business with yourself. And you deserve better than that. You deserve to experience what it feels like. To keep a promise. And not break it. To build momentum slowly. To feel self-trust return. To wake up with direction instead of regret. This isn't about becoming that person. You're not trying to become some perfect, unstoppable version of yourself. You're not trying to become someone who never struggles. You're trying to become someone who doesn't run from struggle. Someone who doesn't quit the moment things feel uncomfortable. Someone who understands that progress isn't always exciting. Sometimes it's boring. And boring is okay. Boring is stable. Stable is powerful. 2026 is your year. 2026 is your year. Not because the universe owes you anything. Not because everything will be easy. But because you're choosing to stop wasting your own potential. Because you're choosing to stop giving up too early. Because you're choosing honesty over excuses. Because you're choosing to show up even when it's not perfect. This is not about big speeches. It's about small actions. Daily. Quietly. Again and again. A quiet promise to end with. So here's the promise you make. Not to the world, not to anyone else. To you. I will try. I will show up. I will stop giving up too early. Not perfectly. Not fearlessly. But honestly. Because 1 year from now, you don't want another apology to yourself. You want pride. And that starts with one decision. Today.